You ever have one of those nights where everything's just kind of off? That was me, sitting in our shared apartment, half zoned out in front of the Xbox. Ashley, my girlfriend, was on her vacation to Dubai with her sister. It was supposed to be one of those girls' trips that I didn't really question. We'd been together for 4 years, and lately, things hadn't exactly been smooth sailing between us, but I figured it was just a rough patch. Every couple goes through those, right? We hadn't had a real conversation in weeks. She used to tell me everything, work drama, family stuff, even the random crap she'd see on the internet. Lately, though, the distance between us felt like an empty canyon. I thought maybe the trip was a good idea, something to help her relax and reset. Maybe she'd come back feeling better, and we could get back to normal. So there I was, trying to mindlessly enjoy a Friday night, but my head kept wandering back to her. We hadn't texted much while she was away, which I found strange. She always shared pics when she traveled, her food, the hotel, all that touristy stuff. But this time, barely anything. A selfie on day one and a couple of stories on Instagram. I told myself not to overthink it, not to be that insecure guy checking his phone every 5 minutes. Then, out of nowhere, I got the notification. Ashley is live on TikTok. I hesitated for a second. It wasn't like her to go live unless she was with friends or doing something fun. Maybe she was just having a good time with her sister, so I clicked on it without expecting anything. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. 1 second she was laughing, spinning the camera around to show the view of the Dubai skyline. I could see the fancy rooftop bar they were at, all neon lights and upbeat music. It looked like a typical vacation night out, just her and her sister partying it up. But then, the camera kept moving, and suddenly it wasn't just her sister in the shot anymore. There he was. Some guy. I didn't recognize him. Dark hair, slicked back, probably someone she met at the bar. The camera caught him for just a second, his arm around her waist, pulling her closer like they were more than just friends. At first, I thought I was seeing things. Maybe it was the camera angle or the lighting. I tried to convince myself it wasn't what it looked like. But it was what happened next that punched me right in the gut. Without hesitation, she turned to him and kissed him. Not some cheeky, drunk we're having fun kiss. No. This was the kind of kiss she used to give me, full on, passionate, like they didn't care who was watching. They were lost in each other, completely unaware that the whole thing was being broadcast live to everyone, including me. I sat there, frozen, staring at my phone in disbelief. My heart was racing. I felt the blood drain from my face, like I'd been slapped across the mouth. My first instinct was to shut the video off, but I couldn't. I kept watching, replaying the moment over and over in my head, hoping it was some sort of mistake. But it wasn't. It was right there, happening in front of my eyes. Ashley, the girl I thought I knew, was making out with some random guy in a city halfway around the world. I didn't know what to do at first. I felt numb, like my brain couldn't catch up with what my eyes were seeing. Was this real? Was she really doing this to me, live for the world to see? All I could hear was the thumping of my heart in my chest, drowning out everything else. It's funny. You think you'll react a certain way if you ever find out your partner's cheating. You imagine throwing things, yelling, storming out. But when it actually happens, it's like your body goes into autopilot. I didn't even feel anger at first, it was like my mind shut down, just trying to process the betrayal. I quickly hit the record button on my phone. I needed evidence. I wasn't going to let her gaslight me or play dumb when I confronted her about it later. I recorded the entire stream, shaky hands and all. I made sure to get every single second of it, her laughing, him touching her, and that kiss. That fucking kiss. Once the video was saved, reality slammed into me like a truck. I couldn't sit there anymore. I couldn't stay in that apartment, surrounded by all of our shared stuff, the photos on the walls, the stupid throw pillows she bought, her clothes in the closet, everything that reminded me of us. Thus that didn't exist anymore. I jumped up from the couch and started pacing the apartment, trying to figure out what the hell to do next. Should I call her? Text her? Yell at her right then and there while she was still live? No, I wasn't ready for that. I didn't want her to know I'd seen it yet. I needed to get out. I grabbed the suitcase from the closet, one of the nice ones we bought together for a trip that now felt like a lifetime ago. My hands were shaking as I threw clothes into it. I didn't even care what I packed. I just needed to get the hell out of there, get away from everything. I tossed in some essentials, grabbed my charger, and slammed the suitcase shut. I glanced around the apartment one last time. This place, which had been our home for 2 years, now felt like a lie. It wasn't my home anymore. It was just a place filled with memories of someone I didn't recognize. Someone who had betrayed me in the most public, humiliating way possible. The video was still saved on my phone, a brutal reminder of what had just gone down. I felt like I was living in some kind of nightmare. My girlfriend, no, my ex, was thousands of miles away, kissing another guy on a rooftop in Dubai while I sat here like an idiot. As I walked out the door, it felt like I was leaving behind more than just the apartment. I was leaving behind the life we had built, the future we had talked about. And in that moment, I didn't care. I couldn't care. All I knew was that I had to get away before the real anger hit. And I knew, deep down, that this was just the beginning of what was going to be a long, messy road of betrayal and revenge. I was out of the apartment and driving aimlessly before I even realized where I was going. I didn't really have a destination, just the overwhelming need to get as far away from that place as possible. My mind was a mess, replaying the live stream over and over again in my head. Ashley kissing that guy, laughing like she didn't have a care in the world while I was sitting here with my life crumbling around me. I kept glancing at my phone, the video saved like a ticking time bomb in my pocket. I couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. She didn't just cheat, she did it on a live stream for all of her followers, her friends, probably her sister too. I wondered if her sister even knew. They were supposed to be on this vacation together. Was she in on it, covering for Ashley? Or was she just as clueless as I had been? The thought made my blood boil. My fingers clenched around the steering wheel so tight I could feel the leather creak under my grip. I wanted to scream, to punch something, but instead, I just drove. For what felt like hours, I circled the same few blocks, my mind running in every direction. Eventually, I ended up in the parking lot of a crappy little motel on the outskirts of town. Not exactly 5-star, but I didn't care. I just needed somewhere to crash, somewhere to think. I checked in, dragging my suitcase behind me as I headed to my room. Once inside, I tossed the bag on the bed and collapsed into a chair by the window. My phone was still in my hand, that damn video mocking me with every glance. I opened it again, rewatching the moment like some kind of masochist. The way her eyes lit up when she kissed that guy. The way she looked so carefree. I'd never seen her like that with me, not in months, anyway. My stomach turned. I had to put the phone down before I threw it across the room. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the way she did it. So public. So careless. Like she didn't give a damn about who saw or how I might feel. Like I was just some placeholder back home while she lived this double life. And the worst part? She probably didn't even know I'd seen it. She was out there right now, dancing on some rooftop, thinking she was getting away with it. My head was spinning with anger and confusion. Was this the first time? Or had this been going on for months without me realizing? The thought hit me like a punch to the gut. What if she'd been seeing this guy, or maybe others, all along? I wouldn't even know. I'd been too trusting, too stupid to see the signs. I started thinking about the past few months, how distant she'd been, how she'd always had her phone on her, always putting it face down when we were together. At the time, I'd written it off as nothing. Maybe she was just stressed or going through something. Now, it felt obvious. Too obvious. I stood up, pacing the room like a caged animal. My brain was on fire with a million thoughts, none of them good. I couldn't just let her get away with this. Not like that. Not after everything we'd been through. For years together, for years of building a life, of talking about the future, and she throws it all away for some random guy she met on vacation? No. Hell no. That's when it hit me. If she could be this careless about cheating, who's to say this guy was the only one? Maybe this wasn't a one-off mistake. Maybe she'd been playing me for a long time. My blood boiled at the thought of it. I needed answers. I needed to know if this was just some spur-of-the-moment fling or if there was more going on. I pulled out my laptop from the suitcase, setting it on the small motel desk. If I wanted to find out, I needed to dig. If she was going to be this bold, this reckless, I had to figure out how deep her betrayal went. I thought about her social media. Ashley was always on her phone, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. She practically lived her life online. I hadn't paid much attention before, but now? Now I had a reason to. Logging into my accounts, I checked her profiles first. It wasn't like I expected to see anything blatantly obvious there, but I figured it was a place to start. Her Instagram was full of the usual stuff, pictures from Dubai, selfies with her sister, all the curated bullshit she loved to show off to her followers. But there was something else. I scrolled through her recent posts, looking for any clue, anything that might stand out. I clicked on one of her latest photos, a shot of her by the pool, drink in hand, bikini-clad. The comments were flooded with heart emojis and thirsty guys, but one comment caught my eye. A guy named Mark had dropped a flirty message, something about how great she looked, how he wished he was there with her. Now, maybe it was innocent. Maybe it was just some random dude shooting his shot. But the thing that set me off? She had liked the comment. No response, but a damn like. It seemed small, something I wouldn't have thought twice about before, but now? Now it felt like another piece of the puzzle. That's when I realized, Ashley wasn't just reckless. She was sloppy. I knew I needed to go deeper. I started thinking about her passwords. We'd shared a few accounts before, Netflix, Spotify, basic stuff. But I'd seen her enter her passwords enough times to have a good idea of what they were. She wasn't exactly creative. I knew she had a go-to for most of her logins, a combination of her childhood pet and her birth year. I felt a knot of guilt in my stomach as I typed it in, but the rage overpowered it. Screw it, I thought. If she was lying to me, I had every right to know. The first thing I tried was her email. Bingo. I was in. It was all right there. Emails from random guys, messages from brands she followed, but more importantly, conversations that looked sketchy. One from a guy named Ryan caught my attention right away. I opened it up, and there it was, plans for them to meet up last month, while I was at work. My stomach twisted as I scrolled through their exchanges, seeing the way she flirted with him, the way she talked about how she couldn't wait to see him. This wasn't just a one-time thing. She'd been seeing other guys behind my back for God knows how long. Ryan, Mark, who else? My fingers moved faster now, digging through her inbox like a madman, finding more conversations with other guys, some recent, some going back months. The anger I'd felt before was nothing compared to what hit me now. She was living a double life, juggling me and these other dudes like it was some kind of sick game. And I had been completely blind to it. But I wasn't blind anymore. I started taking screenshots of everything. Every message, every conversation. I was going to build my case, make sure I had every bit of evidence I needed. She wasn't getting away with this. Not this time. As I scrolled through, I saw a name that stopped me cold. Greg. Greg wasn't just some random guy. He used to be my best friend. We grew up together, went to high school together, did everything together, until a year ago, when we had a falling out. I hadn't talked to him since. And here he was, messaging my girlfriend, sending her photos, calling her pet names. My head spun. So it wasn't just strangers. It was people close to me. People I thought I could trust. I sat back in the chair, staring at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. The weight of the betrayal felt heavier than ever, pressing down on me until I could barely breathe. It wasn't just one guy. It wasn't just some fling. It was a web of lies, tangled around me for who knows how long. But now I had the upper hand. A plan started forming in my mind, piecing itself together bit by bit. If she thought she could play me like this, if she thought she could keep her little secret life hidden, she was dead wrong. I was going to expose her. I was going to bring everything crashing down around her, just like she'd done to me. Only this time, I'd be the one in control. I pulled up her social media accounts, fingers hovering over the keyboard. She had no idea what was coming. I was going to make sure every single person she had lied to knew exactly who she really was. The anger didn't die down overnight. In fact, by the next morning, it had settled deep in my chest, simmering under my skin. I hadn't slept much, how could I? My mind wouldn't stop spinning, replaying the betrayal over and over, thinking about all the lies, the secrets. The shitty motel room felt even smaller in the daylight. Sunlight streamed through the thin curtains, but I barely noticed. I was already hunched over my laptop, going deeper into the mess that was Ashley's secret life. I had only scratched the surface last night. Today, I was going to dive straight into the heart of it. I logged back into her email and social media accounts, my stomach turning with both dread and determination. The more I dug, the clearer it became, Ashley wasn't just cheating with random guys, she had turned this into some kind of sick game, juggling dozens of people without a second thought. The first thing I did was start with the most obvious, Greg. I couldn't shake the sick feeling I had when I saw his name pop up. My ex-best friend. The guy I used to spend weekends with, playing video games, hitting bars, crashing at each other's places like brothers. We hadn't talked in a year after some stupid argument, and I hadn't given it much thought since then. But now? Now it was clear that something had been going on behind my back for a long time. I opened their messages, reading through the conversations. It was disgusting. Flirty banter, inside jokes, and sexting. I felt bile rise in my throat as I scrolled through photos she'd sent him, selfies that weren't just for him, they were the same photos she'd sent me in the past. Same poses, same lingerie. I wanted to punch something, to scream, to break everything in the room. But I kept going. I needed to see it all. Apparently, their little thing had been going on for months, probably even before Greg and I stopped talking. I couldn't believe it. The guy I had trusted more than anyone had been sneaking around with my girlfriend behind my back, and I had been completely oblivious. It wasn't just Greg, though. He was only the beginning. I kept scrolling through her messages, jumping between her email, Instagram DMs, and Facebook Messenger. The more I found, the more I realized just how deep this rabbit hole went. Ashley had been seeing guys left and right, some local, some from other cities, even one dude from another country. She was juggling at least 40 different relationships, maybe more. I started taking notes, organizing everything. I had a list of names by the time I was halfway through. Mark, Ryan, Greg, and a bunch of other guys with generic usernames like FitGuy84 and Loverboy. Some of them were sending her gifts, some were asking her when they could meet up again. It was mind-blowing how casual it all seemed to her. Like she didn't give a damn about any of them, but she kept them strung along anyway. One message stood out. It was from some guy named Jason. They hadn't met up yet, but the way she was talking to him? It was like she was already making plans. They were talking about meeting up after she got back from Dubai, some romantic getaway to a beach resort. The dates lined up. It would have been barely a week after she returned home to me. I felt like an idiot. How many times had I been sitting there, clueless, while she was texting these guys, making plans, sending them pictures, lying to me with that same fake smile she used in every damn photo. But the more I read, the more I realized something else. These guys weren't just randoms. Some of them were familiar names, acquaintances, guys from work, friends of friends. She wasn't just cheating with strangers, she was messing around with people I knew, people we both knew. Some were guys who had been at our apartment, who'd shared drinks with us, talked with me like nothing was going on behind my back. The level of deception was unbelievable. And she wasn't even good at hiding it. Her messages were sloppy. She was using the same pet names, the same flirty lines she used with me, just copy-pasting her way through these conversations like she didn't care if she got caught. The rage bubbled back up to the surface. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was humiliated. She had made a fool out of me. And the worst part? These guys didn't even know about each other. Most of them thought they were the only one. They had no idea they were part of this sick little game Ashley had been playing. As I kept scrolling, I found something that hit me even harder than Greg's betrayal. There was a guy named Ethan, someone I had met once at a party, briefly. I didn't think much of him, just some random friend of a friend. But Ashley had been talking to him for over a year, and the way she talked about me in their messages was like a punch to the gut. She had been venting about me, painting this picture of a guy who didn't care, who was too distracted by work to pay attention to her. She made it sound like I was the problem, like she was some neglected girlfriend looking for love somewhere else. Reading her words, I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. She wasn't just lying to me, she was painting me as the bad guy to justify her actions. She'd been playing the victim with these other guys, making them feel sorry for her, like she had no choice but to cheat because I wasn't good enough. It was all bullshit, and I could see it so clearly now. She had been distant because she was too busy juggling these other relationships. She wasn't the neglected girlfriend, she was the one neglecting me while she lived her double life. I sat back in my chair, staring at the mess I'd uncovered. My chest felt tight, and my hands shook as I gripped the edge of the desk. It wasn't just about the cheating anymore. It was about the lies, the manipulation, the way she had twisted everything to make herself look like the victim. I felt like I was drowning in it all, suffocating under the weight of her deception. But there was one thing I knew for sure, I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I had the screenshots. I had the evidence. And now, I had the motivation. If she thought she could just come back from her little vacation and keep this charade going, she was dead wrong. I opened up a group chat on my phone, adding all the guys whose contact info I had managed to gather. I didn't care how messy this was about to get. I didn't care if it blew up in her face. In fact, I wanted it to. I sent them all the same message, attaching screenshots of her conversations with each of them. Hey, thought you should know. Ashley has been cheating on you with me and a bunch of other guys. Here's the proof. One by one, I hit send. The fallout was immediate. My phone buzzed like crazy, notifications flooding in as the guys started replying. Some were confused, some were angry, some couldn't believe it. They'd all been just as clueless as I had been. It was like watching a bomb go off in real time, the chaos spreading through my phone as these guys realized they'd all been played. It wasn't long before they started messaging Ashley, bombarding her with questions, accusations, demanding answers. My phone kept buzzing with new screenshots, guys sharing their conversations with me, showing how she was trying to spin things, trying to lie her way out of it. But the damage was done. Her little web of lies was unraveling faster than she could keep up with. I could almost picture her, panicking in some luxury hotel room in Dubai, trying to figure out how everything had fallen apart so quickly. How her perfect little vacation had turned into a nightmare. By the time the evening rolled around, my phone had gone quiet. The storm had hit, and now there was nothing left to do but watch the aftermath unfold. But this was just the beginning. Ashley still had no idea I knew about Greg, about Ethan, or any of the others. She had no idea how far I had gone to expose her lies. And when she got back home, I was going to make sure she couldn't gaslight her way out of this. I was ready for the confrontation, and this time, I wasn't going to back down. She had destroyed my trust, my relationship, and my life. But now? Now I was going to destroy hers. By the time I woke up the next morning, the motel room felt like a furnace. The shitty air conditioning had given up during the night, and I was sweating through my clothes, but honestly, I didn't care. My phone was buzzing nonstop from all the chaos I had set in motion the night before. I knew what I was going to see even before I picked it up. I swiped through the flood of notifications, messages from the guys I'd exposed, some furious, others shocked. A couple were still in disbelief, but most of them? They were pissed. Pissed at Ashley, pissed at themselves for not seeing it sooner, and pissed at me, though I could tell it wasn't because they blamed me. It was just that I'd been the one to rip the curtain down and show them the ugly truth. Ryan was the first one to really blow up. He sent me a string of messages, starting with a confused "WTF man?" but quickly turning into a rant about how Ashley had been playing him for months. Apparently, they'd hooked up more than a few times, and he had genuinely thought they were working toward something serious. Poor bastard had no idea she was out there stringing along dozens of other guys. His last message to me was just a screenshot of him cursing her out, telling her to lose his number and calling her every name in the book. Good. Let her squirm. Then there was Mark. His reply was less angry, more sad. He couldn't believe it. He kept asking if I was sure, if there was any chance it was a mistake. Dude actually asked if maybe it was a misunderstanding, like maybe she was just going through a phase. A phase? I didn't bother trying to explain anything to him. I just sent him the screenshots again. If he didn't want to believe it, that was on him. The funniest response came from Ethan, of all people. He didn't try to deny it. He didn't freak out. His reply was literally just, "Well, shit. Guess I'm not that special after all." I almost laughed out loud when I read it. The guy had been seeing her for a year, listening to all her lies, and now? He was shrugging it off like he'd just found out his favorite sandwich shop closed. I guess some people handle betrayal differently. But the best part? Greg. I'd been waiting for that one. I hadn't messaged him directly, no, I wanted to watch the shit hit the fan from a distance. I'd sent the same screenshots to him as I had to everyone else, but I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. He was about to find out just how badly he'd been played. By late morning, he finally texted me. His first message was short, blunt. "Bro, call me." I let it sit there for a while, savoring the moment. Bro. This guy had been banging my girlfriend, lying to my face for who knows how long, and now he wanted to talk like we were still friends. Like I owed him anything. Screw that. He called me after a couple of hours when I didn't respond. I stared at the screen as it buzzed in my hand, my thumb hovering over the answer button. Part of me wanted to hear his excuses, hear how he'd try to weasel his way out of it. But another part of me? I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of hearing my voice. I let it go to voicemail. About 10 minutes later, another text popped up. "Dude, I didn't know. I swear to God, I had no idea she was still with you. She told me you guys broke up months ago." Broke up months ago? That lying piece of... I clenched my fists, feeling the anger surge again. So that was her story. She was telling Greg, and probably all these other guys, that we weren't together anymore, that she was just some single girl looking for love. The level of manipulation was next level, and it made my blood boil. I finally texted back, my fingers punching the screen harder than necessary. "You didn't know? You've been screwing her for months, and you didn't bother to ask? Or did you just not care? Either way, you're both dead to me." There was a long pause before he replied, and when he did, his message was weak. Pathetic, really. "I'm sorry, man. I really am. I didn't mean for this to happen. We can talk, sort this out. I don't want to lose you as a friend." Friend? I almost laughed. What kind of delusion was this guy living in? As if we could just sort this out like he hadn't been backstabbing me for months. I didn't reply after that. What was the point? Greg was done. Ashley was done. And whatever they thought was going to happen next, it didn't matter to me anymore. But as satisfying as it was to see the chaos unfold, I knew the real confrontation was still waiting for me. Ashley was still in Dubai, blissfully unaware of the shitstorm that was brewing. Or at least, she had been. By now, with all the guys blowing up her phone, she probably had an idea that things were falling apart. I checked her social media out of pure curiosity. She hadn't posted anything new since the night I caught her on that TikTok live, but I noticed her follower count had dropped. The comments under her latest Instagram post were interesting. It looked like some of the guys I'd messaged had taken things public. One guy commented something like, "Guess Dubai isn't the only thing you're riding on this trip," followed by a couple of laughing emojis. Another comment was just a bunch of clown emojis. A few of her friends were trying to defend her, saying it was just internet trolls being hateful, but the damage was done. Her picture-perfect image was cracking. I smiled to myself. Good. Let her sweat. I spent the rest of the day putting together more evidence. Screenshots, messages, photos, everything I'd uncovered so far. I wanted to be ready when she came back. There was no way she was going to gaslight her way out of this. I wasn't going to give her an inch to maneuver. And honestly, I wasn't even sure what I was going to do when she finally got home. Part of me wanted to see her face when she realized I knew everything. Another part of me just wanted to disappear, never give her the satisfaction of seeing me again. I was torn between wanting to confront her and wanting to ghost her the way she deserved. But no matter what, I knew one thing: I wasn't going to let her off easy. That night, as I lay in the motel bed, staring up at the stained ceiling, I thought about all the times we'd laughed together, all the plans we'd made for the future. It felt like someone else's life now, like it had all happened to a different person. How had it all gone so wrong? How had I been so blind? But there was no point in dwelling on it. What was done was done. I couldn't change the past, but I sure as hell could make sure she paid for what she did. I'd made my move. Now, it was her turn to deal with the consequences. I closed my eyes, letting out a long breath, the first real sense of calm I'd felt since this whole nightmare began. Tomorrow, she'd be back. And I'd be ready. The next morning felt like the calm before the storm. I woke up early, my body still tense from everything that had gone down, but my mind was clear. Ashley was supposed to fly back today. I checked the time and realized she'd probably be in the air by now, completely unaware of what was waiting for her when she landed. I had everything I needed: the messages, the screenshots, the evidence that she'd been cheating with not just Greg but a whole damn roster of guys. The guys I'd exposed were still blowing up her social media. I checked Instagram out of morbid curiosity and saw that she'd disabled comments on her posts. Couldn't handle the heat, I guess. Serves her right. I grabbed my stuff from the motel, threw it in the back of my car, and drove around for a while. I wasn't in a rush to head back to the apartment. The idea of being there when she came home felt both exhilarating and sickening. Part of me wanted to be standing right there, arms crossed, waiting to drop the bomb on her face to face. But another part of me just felt drained, like I had already gone through every emotion possible and now I was running on fumes. But I had to face her. I couldn't just let her walk in like nothing had happened. I needed to see her squirm, watch her try to explain her way out of this, and then tear down every excuse she threw at me. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done, the way it crushed me when I saw her with that guy on TikTok. I wanted her to know there was no coming back from this. I drove back to the apartment, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. It felt strange, walking back into a place that no longer felt like home. Everything inside, the couch, the TV, the pictures on the wall, was just stuff now. Empty reminders of the life we'd built, or at least, the life I thought we'd built. None of it felt real anymore. I tossed my keys on the kitchen counter and stood there for a minute, just letting the silence sink in. I knew she'd be walking through that door soon, and when she did, everything was going to explode. I checked my phone. Sure enough, her flight had landed. She'd be back in less than an hour. I paced the apartment, restless. I replayed everything in my head, going over what I'd say, how I'd confront her. I didn't want to come off as some broken, heartbroken mess. I wanted to be cold, calm, in control. I wanted her to know that she couldn't manipulate me, couldn't spin this into something it wasn't. Not this time. But when I heard the key turn in the lock, my heart started pounding in my chest. All the anger, the betrayal, the hurt, it all came rushing back like a tidal wave. The door swung open, and there she was. Ashley, dragging her suitcase behind her, sunglasses perched on her head like she'd just come back from the vacation of a lifetime. She looked exhausted but happy. She had no idea what was coming. "Hey, babe," she said, her voice annoyingly chipper as she stepped inside. "I missed you so much." The words made my stomach turn. Missed me? She'd been kissing another guy while I was at home, and she had the nerve to act like everything was fine. I felt the anger surge, but I held it back. This wasn't the moment to blow up. Not yet. I didn't say anything right away, just stood there, staring at her. She gave me a confused smile, her eyes narrowing as she looked around the apartment. "Why are you just standing there? Aren't you gonna help me with my bags or something?" she asked, her voice light, casual, like she didn't have a clue. I crossed my arms, my heart racing. "How was Dubai?" Her smile faltered a little, but she recovered quickly. "Oh, it was amazing. You saw the stories, right? We went to that rooftop bar I told you about. The view was insane." She dropped her suitcase by the door, walking toward me. "I got you a gift too. Just wait till you see." "Cut the shit, Ashley," I said, my voice coming out sharper than I intended. "We need to talk." She stopped in her tracks, her smile fading completely. She looked at me, confused. "What's going on? Why are you acting weird?" I could feel the tension building in the room, the weight of everything about to come crashing down. I pulled out my phone, opened the video from TikTok, and held it up for her to see. Her eyes went wide the second she saw it. The video was paused on the moment she kissed that guy, the guy who'd ruined everything. I watched her face as it registered, as the reality of what I was showing her sunk in. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock, then to panic. What is that? She stammered, her voice shaky. How did you? You went live, Ashley, I said, my voice steady. You were streaming it for the world to see. And I saw everything. Her mouth opened and closed like she was struggling to find the right words, but nothing came out. She was caught, and she knew it. But the panic in her eyes didn't make me feel better. If anything, it pissed me off more. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She was just scared she got caught. Babe, it's not what it looks like, she finally blurted out, stepping toward me. I swear, it was a stupid mistake. I was drunk, and... Spare me the excuses, I snapped, cutting her off. I don't care if you were drunk. You knew exactly what you were doing. And this wasn't just some random hookup, was it? Her eyes darted around the room, her mind scrambling for something to say, something to save herself. It was just a one-time thing. I swear. It didn't mean anything, I laughed, but there was no humor in it. One-time thing? You really think I'm that stupid? I pulled out my laptop, opening it up to the screenshots I'd taken of her messages with Greg, with Ryan, with the others. I know everything, Ashley. I've seen the texts, the DMs. You've been juggling me and a dozen other guys for months. Her face went pale. How did you? You thought you could keep playing me, didn't you? I said, my voice calm but laced with fury. But you weren't careful enough. You left a trail, and now I know about all of them. Greg, Ryan, Jason, and about 40 more. She stood there, frozen, her mouth slightly open. I could see her trying to think of something, anything to explain herself. But there was no getting out of this. She was trapped, and she knew it. It's not like that, she said, her voice small. I don't know. I was confused. I didn't know how to. Save it, I said, cutting her off again. You lied. You cheated. You played me for a fool, and now you're going to have to deal with the consequences. She shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. I didn't mean to hurt you. I love you. I don't know what's wrong with me. The words stung, but they didn't move me. Not anymore. The tears didn't mean shit to me now. I'd seen behind the mask, seen the lies and manipulation, and no amount of crying was going to fix that. I stepped back, my arms still crossed. You don't get to cry and pretend like you're the victim here. You did this, Ashley. You made your choices. And now, everyone knows. Her head snapped up, panic flooding her face again. Everyone? What do you mean everyone? I smiled, a cold, bitter smile. I messaged them. All of them. Every single one of the guys you've been cheating with. They know. They know about each other, they know about me, and they know exactly who you are. Her face went pale, her eyes wide with shock and fear. You didn't? Oh, I did, I said, feeling a surge of satisfaction. They've been blowing up your phone all day, haven't they? Asking questions, sending you screenshots? How does it feel, Ashley? How does it feel to have everything fall apart right in front of you? She looked down at her phone, which was still in her hand. I could see the notifications flooding in, lighting up her screen one after another. She didn't even try to unlock it. She knew it was over. I'm done, I said, my voice cold. We're done. Pack your shit and get out. The tears finally spilled over, running down her cheeks as she stared at me, her lip trembling. Please, we can fix this. We can talk about it. I'll go to therapy, I'll do whatever you want. Just, don't throw everything away. I stared at her for a long moment, the anger and betrayal burning in my chest. But the truth was, she'd already thrown everything away. There was nothing left to save. Too late, I said, turning my back on her. Get out. And with that, I walked out of the apartment, leaving her standing there in the ruins of the life she'd destroyed. This time, I wasn't looking back. Walking out of the apartment felt like shedding dead weight. The second I left her there, tears streaming down her face, I felt lighter. For the first time in days, maybe even weeks, I could breathe. I had imagined this moment 100 times since that night on TikTok, but none of those fantasies came close to how it felt to actually do it, to tell her to pack her bags and get out of my life. I got into my car and just sat there for a moment, staring at the steering wheel. My heart was still racing from the confrontation, but it was a different kind of adrenaline. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was just done. I'd already messaged the landlord to let him know Ashley would be moving out. It was my name on the lease, and I wasn't about to make things easy for her. She had nowhere else to go, and I wasn't about to give her time to figure things out. She could run back to one of the guys she'd been stringing along, maybe Greg, if he was stupid enough to take her in. Either way, I didn't care. Her problems weren't mine anymore. I pulled out of the parking lot, driving aimlessly at first, letting my thoughts settle. I didn't have a plan, really. No grand idea of what came next. I just knew that this chapter of my life was over, and I had no intention of looking back. As I drove, my phone buzzed in the cup holder. I glanced at it, expecting another flood of notifications from the guys or maybe one last desperate message from Ashley. But it wasn't her. It was Greg. I sighed, picking up the phone. The message was short, as if he was trying to tread carefully. "Dude, I just want to talk. Please." I stared at the screen, feeling that familiar wave of bitterness wash over me. Part of me wanted to block him right then and there, to cut him off completely like I'd done with Ashley. But something made me hesitate. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe I just wanted to hear what he had to say for himself. Against my better judgment, I called him. He picked up after the first ring, his voice sounding strained. "Hey, man. What do you want, Greg?" I said, my voice flat, emotionless. There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear him breathing, like he was trying to figure out how to start. "Look, I'm sorry," he finally said, his voice low. "I fucked up. I know I did. I didn't know it was still going on between you two. I swear, if I'd known, I never would've." "Bullshit," I cut him off. "You knew. You just didn't care. You thought you could sneak around behind my back and get away with it?" He went silent for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was shaky. "Maybe. I don't know, man. I guess I was just, I don't know, lonely? Things haven't been good for me since we stopped talking, and then she was there, and, fuck, I don't know. I'm not making excuses. I know I messed up." I let his words hang in the air for a second, letting them sink in. Maybe he was telling the truth, maybe he really didn't know how to explain his betrayal, but I wasn't interested in giving him a pass. "I don't care why you did it," I said, my voice colder than I expected. "You were my best friend. You could have come to me, told me what was going on. But instead, you stabbed me in the back and helped her keep this going for months. You're just as guilty as she is." "I know, man," he whispered. "I know. I'll never be able to make it right, but I wanted to apologize. I never wanted to lose you as a friend." I laughed, a bitter sound that felt more like a release than humor. "Friend? You're not my friend anymore, Greg. You haven't been for a long time." He didn't say anything after that, and I knew there was nothing more to say. This wasn't a situation where we could patch things up or go back to the way things were. The friendship had died the minute he'd crossed that line with Ashley, and no amount of apologies was going to change that. "I don't want to hear from you again," I said, my voice final. "We're done. Just like I'm done with her." Before he could respond, I hung up the phone and tossed it back into the cup holder. That was it. No more loose ends, no more apologies, no more bullshit. It was over. I spent the next few hours wandering around town, grabbing coffee, stopping at random shops just to kill time. I wasn't in any rush to head back to the apartment. I figured I'd give Ashley enough time to pack up and leave before I went back. I wasn't interested in any more confrontations. By the time I finally pulled into the parking lot, the sun was starting to set. The sky was streaked with orange and pink, the kind of sunset that would have been perfect for one of Ashley's Instagram stories. But I didn't care about that anymore. I walked up to the apartment, pausing at the door. I wasn't sure what I'd find inside, if she'd actually packed up and left or if she was still there, clinging to whatever hope she had left. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. The place was empty. Her suitcase was gone, along with most of her stuff. The pictures of us on the wall had been taken down, and the apartment looked bare, like it was in transition, caught between being our home and just another empty space. I stood there for a moment, taking it all in. It didn't feel like a victory. It didn't feel like closure. It just felt quiet. But maybe that was what I needed. I walked into the living room, my footsteps echoing in the silence. Everything felt surreal, like I was walking through a dream. But it wasn't a dream. This was my new reality, a life without Ashley, without the lies, without the betrayal. On the kitchen counter, I found a note. Her handwriting was messy, like she'd been rushing. "I'm sorry." That was it. 2 words, scrawled across a piece of notebook paper. No explanation, no desperate plea for forgiveness. Just those 2 words. It felt hollow, empty, like everything else she'd said and done. I crumpled the note in my hand and tossed it in the trash. Over the next few days, things started to settle. The messages from the guys slowed down, and eventually, the chaos faded into the background. I spent a lot of time alone, trying to figure out what came next. I wasn't in a rush to move on, but I wasn't going to let this drag me down either. I changed the locks on the apartment and went through all of Ashley's remaining things, packing them up in boxes and dropping them off at her sister's place. It wasn't my job to deal with her anymore. If she wanted to pretend like she could fix things, that was her problem, not mine. The guys I'd exposed stopped messaging me, too. Most of them had moved on, probably just as glad to be rid of her as I was. Greg hadn't tried to reach out again, and I doubted he ever would. The circle of people I'd once called friends had shifted, shrunk down to just me. And honestly, that was fine with me. One night, about a week after I kicked her out, I found myself sitting on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, and for a second, I thought about ignoring it. But something made me pick it up. It was a text from my buddy, Ryan, not the Ryan from Ashley's little web of lies, but my actual friend from work. The guy I'd started drifting from because of everything going on with her. "Dude, haven't seen you in a while. Wanna grab a beer tonight?" I stared at the message for a moment, then smiled. It was a simple offer, nothing complicated. But after everything that had happened, it felt like a lifeline. "Yeah," I typed back. "Sounds good." As I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't tied down by anger, or sadness, or betrayal. I wasn't thinking about Ashley, or Greg, or any of the guys she'd cheated with. I was just moving forward. And that was enough.